This is Andrew Jones with Jones Land Management, coming to you today to break down a property we've been doing some timber stand improvement on. Pull up a chair, this is going to be a long one. The former owner of this property clear cut most all of the timber in the year 2000 and never re-entered to manage it. The current landowner purchased this property in 2015 and did a tremendous amount of work adding in roads throughout, ditches, and they cut in about 5 1-acre areas to have fault food plots. But that's kind of where they left the improvements from there and hunted it just as it stood. The first several years they said they had a lot of deer activity. It was looking very promising. They were finding a lot of sheds in the off season, but for the past several years they've noticed a pretty steady decline on the deer and the turkeys around here that they're seeing. As I mentioned before, the majority of this timber was clear cut 23 years ago and has not been managed since. Half of the tract consists of extremely overstocked blocks of volunteer pines, and the other half is mostly mixed hardwoods with tightly packed in water and willow oaks that are fighting being choked out by shade tolerant such as red maple, sweet gum, and some black gum and hickory. All of the above is developed into a very high basal area, closed canopy, overcrowded timber stand with virtually a barren forest floor on the interior. From a whitetail's perspective, any deer living here certainly would have been creatures of the edge, because that's the only place any natural forage was located. In the state it was taking many acres to feed one deer with natural forage, and through some timber stand improvement, we can flip that and support many deer per acre with high quality natural forage and eventually high quality cover with available food nearby. From the perspective of the wild turkey, turkeys need room to run and if necessary fly to avoid predation, and they certainly weren't doing either in this timber as it stood. After a very long walk through the woods, flagging and identifying key areas and planning with the landowner, we brought over our forestry mulcher to begin improving this timber stand, putting sunlight on the oaks and sunlight on the forest floor. You can really see that these oaks were struggling with the very small crown size, focusing solely on reaching up to the little bit of sunlight they could get. However, with the sunlight on them now, we should see a big jump in crown size just in year one. Obviously, a fine finish wasn't the name of the game on this one. Covering ground, releasing as many oaks from overgrowth, and getting sunlight on the forest floor was. I cut a whole lot of oaks out just to give what I left some room. However, I have left the standing oaks a little overstocked short term. These trees haven't felt as much as a breeze in a long time, and I wanted to leave some extra to hedge against and account for wind loss just over the next year or so. If I would have cut everyone out and left it as thin as they're going to want it forever to get the right amount of sunlight on the floor, we sure would be in trouble if we lost a bunch to some high wind. I left a border by their existing roads to assist in screening their entry and exits, and so if they bump a deer off the road, it has an immediate area to retreat to. It's also going to help keep some of that wind off those trees until they get a little stronger. Once that area that I've cleared in grows up and gets about waist height, then we'll come back in and get into those border areas and get those trees growing healthy too and the sunlight on that ground. That'll be great for diversity too, to have various levels of succession with the new plant growth rather than completing entire blocks at the exact same time. All totaled up, we got 8.5 acres of timber stand improved in several different areas on this first trip. There's a lot left to do, but just that has brought a tremendous amount of diversity to this landowner's property, and it's going to put thousands and thousands of pounds of additional forage on the landscape. While I was on site, I also met with a registered forester, and they're currently putting together a plan to get some of the overstocked volunteer pine blocks thinned out and healthy, and sunlight on that forest floor too. You know, where this landowner was planting food plots, they really had all the food just inside their timber that they could ever need. All they had to do was start managing it, put sunlight on the trees, increase that mass production, put sunlight on the ground, increase that natural browse, which is a huge part of a deer's diet. I've really got high hopes for what's to come on this property, and I know they're going to be able to, for years to come, support a lot more wildlife in here and create a better habitat.